Hello and welcome to Voices Shaking USC. I'm your host, Ashley Williams, for this edition. I'm a junior varsity debater on the USC Trojan Debate Squad. This is where policy debate begins and never ends. And on our show today, we're actually going to engage in a mini policy debate between the USC Trojan Debaters. And to my right, we have Lee, who is a member of the USC Trojan Debate Squad, and we also have JR, who is also a member of the Trojan Debate Squad. And they're actually going to engage in a 6-minute debate. A normal debate round, it would be about a 40-minute speech, but it's going to be a lot shorter for you all today. The opinions and the views discussed in our show today are not necessarily those of Trojan Debate Squad or of Trojan Vision. They're just opinions and perspectives being shown on the show today, but they're just to reflect on them and to engage in conversation. So now we're going to have JR, who is AF, engage in his debate.
Like Ashley said, it's a pleasure to be here today. And this is not going to go down like a traditional policy debate, just to sort of set the record straight. But our topic today, I'm affirming the topic that the United States federal government should jail people who exhibit racism or prejudice. And first, I want to define the word people in this instance. And I define people as government officials, public officers, and police officers as well. And so I'm going to use the case of Henry Louis Gates and the police officer as my starting point. For those who don't know, Henry Louis Gates is a Harvard professor who came into his house one evening and he was stopped by a police officer without probable cause because he had trouble getting into his own home. He lost his keys, and he was suspected that he was breaking into someone else's home when in fact it was his own home, and he was asked to show identification in his own house. I think that was a gross invasion of privacy. Many in the media also felt that it was a gross invasion of privacy, and it sparked a lot of controversy around the country. And President Obama called it a teachable moment. Well, I call it a moment that we need to reflect on the way that racism sort of operates in this country and how it is still alive and present today. And so I think that because he did that and because the police officer violated his rights, I think that he should be jailed, and I think that there should be criminalization on behalf of the police officer.
Interesting. All right, well, JR, your 2 minutes are just up, so you made it just in time. Good job.
Oh, great, thank you.
What is this, I'm going to have Lee ask you questions, though, because like you said, this is actually going to be a little bit different than our normal policy debates. So, Lee, do you want to begin asking JR some questions? He will have 2 minutes to go ahead and do so.
Bring it on, Mr. Who.
Sure. So, Mr. Sterling, you made quite a few excellent points.
Thank you.
My first question is, how do you know when someone's exhibiting racism?
Well, that's actually funny that you bring that up, because that was something that we were talking about before the show. And well, in this case, like I said, I defined people as government officials, public officers, and police officers. So in this case, it was very clear who was exhibiting the act of racism, because it was a public officer that was showing racism on behalf.
So what happens if you're like in a
citizen.
classroom? What happens if you're like in a classroom and a professor exhibits racism towards you, and it's clearly identifiable? Would the professor not get punished?
I think that he should get punished, and I think that there should be some type of recourse for people that show acts of racism, like a professor to a student. Because honestly, racism happens in even the most smallest of places, and what I mean by that is even places that people least suspect it. And so that's why I think even in cases like that, even in someone's home,
what exactly
it should
is
be
the
criminalized.
point of jailing people who exhibit racism, though? Do you think that would change their mindset? What exactly is the goal for doing so?
Well, I think that it would give them an opportunity to rethink their actions, and it would be sort of a serious consequence instead of just letting it fly by, and instead of people just not really giving it
Will there be a trail?
Will
they get a trail? How long will they be in jail for?
What do you mean a trail?
Like, is it just automatically if you're caught for racism, you go to jail, or you get a trail, right? Would a jury decide?
I would let that be
fair?
up. I would let that sort of be up to the people in charge of the criminalizing.
Okay, well, thank you so much, JR, for your comments, and thank you, Lee, for asking him questions. I'm going to have you, Lee, just prep for your next speech if you would like to. So this debate is pretty intense. It's a little emotional, and it can probably provide you with a little bit of anger, I'm sure. I mean, it can. So, but now I just want you to just take a step back and just really think about the arguments that are taking place. And usually in cross-ex, they last for 3 minutes long, but this one was shortened down for you all. And now we're going to have Lee engage in his speech. So Lee, could you please begin for us? You'll have 2 minutes set.
Sure. Mr. Sterling definitely made quite a few excellent points. I can tell he came very prepared, and he definitely did a lot of research. I guess some of the main points that I would attack is, like in cross-examination, I didn't receive a very satisfactory answer to this question about racism exactly. Sure, people exhibit racism every day. It's an everyday basis. But how exactly do you identify it? And is there like a bright line for the punishment? For example, let's say someone out of an act of racism kills another person. Would their punishment be greater than just a simple act of like disrespect as a form of racism? So that's the first argument that I want to make. And the second argument is that while I'm in no way saying that racism is not important and that it's not something that we shouldn't account for, I do not think that putting people in jail for exhibiting racism is a correct manner to go about correcting it, because in all honesty, if someone is racist or if someone exhibits racist tendencies, putting them in jail most likely will not change their viewpoint. And if anything, it might only fuel their anger, and they might only want to get revenge, which would only make them commit the same actions in the future. And additionally, JR brought up an excellent example, a historical example, and I want to bring up another one, and that is the LA riots that happened about in the 1990s, which rocked Los Angeles, and it was all started by the Rodney King beating by several police officers. And as we all know, that incident led to huge racist riots within Los Angeles, and it made national news. Now, if people were to be thrown in jail for racist actions, it could lead to more riots as well. And I don't know how Mr. Sterling is going to respond to this, but I am eagerly awaiting his answer.
Thank you so much, Lee, for your speech. I really appreciate it. Very interesting as well. And so we're going to let JR prepare for his last speech. For those of you who are interested in possibly giving us your opinions or issues that you would like to see debated on the show, please email us at uscdebatevoices@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We're always welcoming of new issues that we can debate and possibly educate the public on. So, JR, are you about ready for your speech?
Yes. Well, while Mr. Hu did make some good points, he sort of dropped the ball on a few of them. The first is that he asked whether there's a bright line for exhibiting racism. Well, that's the thing. Racism is very insidious, and its logic is it works behind closed doors. And in this particular instance, with the police officer and Henry Louis Gates, this is a question. This not only gets into racism, but it also gets into issues of probable cause and the rights that citizens have. And as a citizen, Mr. Gates is entitled to be treated with the utmost respect that he wasn't shown in this case. And this was a very clear act of racism and a very clear invasion of privacy. Mr. Hu made some comments about killing and things of that nature. That was incoherent to me. I'm not really sure what he was talking about. He said some people might have revenge. Well, I mean, maybe that might happen, but I think that the consequence of still being put into jail would give them ample time to consider their actions and think seriously about them before they would have any type of knee-jerk reaction once they get out of prison to commit those same racist acts again. He also brought up the LA riots. Those were spurred because of racism. They were spurred because of racism. It's not something that people were maybe thrown into jail because of the riots, but who would really need to be held accountable is the government officials that didn't respond to the destitution that existed in the LA area. That's why those riots occurred. So in my opinion, those government officials should be held accountable for the fact that they did not bring ample money and support to the people of color in LA.
Thank you, JR. That was very interesting. Very interesting points.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to have Lee. We have a little bit of time to prep as well. What makes you think that this is something that the public should be aware of?
Well, I mean, I think that racism is still alive today, and I think although some people say that we live in a post-racist society, I think that is a sham. Even though we have a black president, a biracial president, and that is a great milestone, it is by no means that racism has ended, and so I think it's important to continue these conversations.
Thanks, JR. Thank you for that. Okay, Lee, you can begin your speech.
The main thing that I do want to refer back to again is I really his whole solution, his whole plan of throwing people in jail who exhibit racism. I really do not believe that is the correct solution. And so if his plan, so-called plan, is not going to accomplish anything, then I really don't see any reason in adopting it. And once again, the reason I say that his plan of throwing people in jail who exhibit racism is not a good idea is because people who are racist, it's embedded in their mind, and regardless of what kind of racist act they do commit, putting them in jail is not going to change their mindset. And JR has yet to say what exactly the standards for these punishments are. Are people going to be in jail for 2 years, 3 years, for a life sentence? What exactly are the punishments going to be? And additionally, it's going to get huge criticism, not only from the media, from the public. And while that's not a big deal this is so important, it should still be a point that we consider because the public, this is going to draw so much negative attention from the public because, again, going back to my original point, JR has yet to define exactly how you exhibit racism. Like, for example, if you are a white individual or a black individual and you go to a store and you buy something and the store clerk treats you in a very negatively manner and you perceive that to be racism, what is the defining point? Do you call the police, and does the police come and make a subjective, objective decision on the spot? Do you get a jury decision? Are 11, 12 people going to decide your fate in jail? Like, how exactly does that work? And the reason that I brought up the Rodney King beating was because the Rodney King beating was, most likely spurred by racism. However, those police officers, they went to trial, they got acquitted, they didn't go to jail, but all that did was bring up more racist, it only spurred more racism in the future, and it brought up national spotlight. So again, I'm not saying that racism is okay. I'm not saying it's acceptable. In fact, it's totally the opposite. I completely agree with Mr. Sterling that racism is totally not tolerable, but I'm saying that a better solution is needed, and we need to go in a different direction. And I completely do not agree with his solution, and I do not adopt it.
Thank you, Lee, for your speech.
You're welcome.
It's really engaging.
You're welcome.
And so now we're going to talk with the debaters about what just took place. And I would like to begin with Lee, since I already asked you, JR, a question. Lee, what causes you to get, I guess to say this speech is pretty intense, to get kind of angry or a little bit irrational about what plan JR is bringing forth?
Well, I mean, racism is such an important thing. Like, we both agreed that I feel like he just offered a very half-hearted solution, and I don't think that that's the right direction that we should move on.
Excuse me, Mr. Who. That was not half-hearted, okay?
You guys can talk about each other. Go ahead.
It was very heartfelt, so you can put it where your mouth is on that.
I guess I'm just so enthusiastic about the subject that I just really don't see eye to eye with you on this. So that's why I feel like you didn't put your full time and preparation beforehand into thinking of a solution.
Well, you know,
maybe it would be this would be a good place to start analyzing and start thinking about those extremes that are taking place and how those might reflect other issues that are going on in society.
Yeah.
You know?
Certainly.
Especially since the incident with Professor Gates happened.
Right.
Right. Lee, what do you feel like society should take from this debate?
Well, I mean, I think society should to take away that obviously racism is still an issue that plagues us every single day, whether we see it or not, and that it's something that needs discussion, and we need to find a solution for this. And I think this was a very meaningful and fulfilling discussion in the right direction. And while I completely do not agree with Mr. Sterling's idea, I do applaud him for coming up with a plausible solution.
Well, I mean, I think that showing acts of racism clearly hurts and alienates and disappoints and angers
Do you think
many
that
people in our society.
That every person could say that they've experienced racism or prejudice in some aspect, or what do you think about that?
Well, I can't speak for everyone in this society. I mean, I certainly don't think that white groups, maybe have experienced, acts of racism. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a large number of non-whites that experience racism on an everyday level in our society, and I think that it's an important issue to be talked about and discussed, because I know that there are those that feel that racism no longer exists in our society, and they're wrong. I want to interrupt you real quick. Why do you feel that the white segment of the demographic does not experience racism? Well, I don't say, okay, maybe that was a bit of a generalization. I don't say maybe they might not experience, some acts of racism, but I mean, we live in a white society. You know what I'm saying? Whiteness is everywhere, and it erases difference. it erases difference. So
just because you're white, you can't experience racism?
well, that is the norm, and that is the standard. So I mean, there is no black without white. White is put on a pedestal. So I would say that no, you can't.
Well, thank you guys so much for your opinions on the show today. I really appreciate it. And once again, these views and opinions that are expressed on the show are just ways, they're perspectives being presented. They're not necessarily the opinions of these debaters or the Trojan Debate Squad.
It's my opinion.
Okay, well, but Jared's opinion? Great. But just so that you're aware. And for those of you, again, who are interested in participating on the show or sending us your feedback on this debate that just happened, please send your emails to uscdebatevoices@gmail.com. And right now we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Thank you.
I've been coaching at USC now for 8 years, and I've been coaching debate for about 15 years. And for me, it is the opportunity to give back to an activity that has really changed my life. The debate program started when the university opened in 1880. The debate program has been part of different schools at USC, but it still continued the basic principle of making sure that students find a way to learn to argue, students find a way to engage in reasoning processes, and making judgment about the information that they have around them. Debate is, at its highest form, an intercollegiate sport, in the sense that students have to engage in a tremendous amount of preparation and practice before we compete. At a far more fundamental level, debate changes the way people relate to information. Debate is a way of empowering individuals to think about arguments as not owned by someone else or not beyond their mastery. And I'm going to steal from the NCAA. They have a great phrase saying that most of our athletes go pro in something other than the sport they compete in. Very few people go pro in debate. You can become a college professor, but the vast majority of our students, they go pro by being lawyers. They go pro by being producers. They go pro by being a business person, an accountant, a teacher. And so the thing that I'm really proud is our students have an academic track record, which I'd put against any other university in the country, saying that not only do we do great things when we compete, but those same folks that then once they graduate go on to be incredibly important people and a tremendous amount of success impacted their local and national communities. If we don't teach this idea of owning arguments and understanding arguments and be able to engage them, and we also don't teach it in a way that allows folks to be fluid with who they are as people. And I think only by a focus in that process can we get better, more reasoned civic engagement. I think the future of debate is teaching judgment about public information, and I think it's an incredibly important skill.
Hello, and welcome back to Voices Shaking USC. I'm your host, Ashley Williams, for this edition. And I'm a USC Trojan Debater. I'm a junior varsity debater. Those of you who are just tuning in, audiences just witnessed a debate between JR, who is a debater of the Trojan Debate Squad, and Lee, who is also a debater of the Trojan Debate Squad. It was a debate focused on racism and prejudice. A very intense debate. A lot of opinions and views were expressed. And you just also saw an interview done with a USC coach, USC Trojan Debate Squad coach, and I hope you got an inside glimpse into what it's like to be on the USC Debate Squad. And now we're actually going to talk to JR and Lee about their experiences being on the squad. So JR, what is it like being on the USC Trojan Debate Squad, and what's it like to engage in debates?
Well, being on the Trojan Debate Squad is absolutely fantastic. I mean, Gordon and the rest of the coaches are incredibly supportive, and they really make sure that they create a program that facilitates not only good debaters, but also a good academic experience on the whole. So that's really what I've appreciated the most about it. And going to debates and traveling is great, and there's so much opportunity there. I mean, we travel to a ton of different colleges, you know, across the country, and then there's also opportunities to volunteer at local high schools and things of that nature. So I really like the resources that the Trojan Debate Squad has provided, and I'm glad that I'm happy to be a part of it.
That's great. How do you like being on the Trojan Debate Squad? Have you always had a passion for debate?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was in debate for 4 years in high school. I was very successful on a local, state, and I even made it to the national level. And when I decided to come to USC, I knew that USC had an excellent debate program. So I contacted Gordon, the head coach, and he offered me a spot, and I've been on the USC debate team ever since. And I would say that my experience on Debate Squad has been really good. And I do want to echo one of Mr. Sterling's points, which is that Gordon doesn't just try to make the Debate Squad entirely about debate. It's also about an academic experience. For example, he doesn't place debate as the #1 priority in your life. He doesn't force you to do just debate. If you have other priorities such as academics, he stresses that as well. So I think it's a really well-rounded program. And Goran is just a really great guy in general. I really do like Goran a lot. And Teddy has been great as well. And I just feel like the squad really is whatever you want, whatever you put into it, that's what you get out of it. So it really is just very self-fulfilling.
That's great, Lee. That's great. And could you tell me about the different personalities or the different type of debaters that are on the team? Is it, because some people might think everyone is kind of
Where to start?
Yeah.
I can answer that. Well, to start with my colleague, or I guess my opponent in this debate, was Mr. Sterling.
And we're more than colleagues, Lee. Let's just cut it. We're really good friends.
That's good. That's good.
The Trojan Debate Squad is made up of quite a few different characters and personalities, I guess you could say. It has quite a variety. And to start with my colleague, Mr. Sterling here, I would say he's not just a debater. Like, people see his excellent debating skills. Like, you've already seen it, you just saw it here. But he's more than that. He's also an actor, he's a writer, and he's also trying to be, he's trying to do the whole acting thing. So I guess that shows that a lot of the people on this squad aren't just debaters. And then another good friend of mine, his name is Mr. Roger Carson Deere, he's a senior right now. He's also been a debater, but he's also a lot more than that. He's trying to do business internationally. So I guess it really just shows that there's quite a few personalities on the debate squad.
I heard you're a very talented actor, JR.
Thank you.
And tell me about that. How do you find time to do debate as well as pursue your other passions? Do you feel like it's very easy to do?
This year, I'm no longer traveling on the squad because it takes up a lot of time and responsibility so that I can focus on some of my other aspirations like acting. But but it's just like anything, debate is like a mental sport, and to do it, it requires just as much time as a football player takes at football practice, just in a different way. But I think it's well worth it, and I'm at a point personally where I'm ready to move on to sort of other endeavors. I've had an excellent debate career, but I'm ready to do new things.
That's great. Yeah, I actually heard that you were in the NDT.
I was.
And that's the National Debate Tournament.
Yeah, when I was
great.
Thank you. When I was a freshman, I was very fortunate I had an excellent debate partner, honestly.
And for those of you who aren't aware, the National Debate Tournament is like the highest prestigious tournament that a debater could get accepted into. You have to qualify for it, and JR was lucky enough to qualify. That's great.
Right, and I was actually fortunate enough to be one of 2 freshmen in the octa final rounds of the National Debate Tournament. And a lot of people, they work their entire careers, to get to that point. Even some seniors don't get to that point. So I feel comfortable where I was. It was a great experience. I wouldn't be the person. Debate literally changed my life. I wouldn't be the same person I am without it. But I'm ready to take all that it has given me and move forward.
That's great, JR. Very great. And for you, Lee, I actually heard that you were involved in the community service part of the debate team. Could you tell us a little about that? And that's a part of the Urban Debate League Foundation, is that right?
Yeah. When this initiative was started, I really wanted to be a part of it because I want to give back to the community, and I really like working with kids. So when I had the opportunity, I went to Crenshaw High School, which is a local high school around the Los Angeles area. When I met the kids and I started working with them, and it was just a wonderful experience, and I've been an assistant coach. I've tried to mentor and help them ever since, and we've built a great relationship so far.
Wow, that sounds so great, Lee. It's such a great thing for you to do.
Well, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. And thank you, Lee and JR, for being on our show today.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it, and I loved having you guys on, and it was really great.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you, our viewers, for tuning in on this edition of Voices Shaking USC. Once again, I'm your host, Ashley Williams. And please tune in for next time on our show. And if you have any opinions or interests that you would like to express to us, please email us at uscdebatevoices@gmail.com. I hope to see you next time. Take care.